Alright guys, so it's finally here. I just got out of theaters from seeing Superman on the big screen, and this movie seems to be, quite divisive despite all the positive reviews that it's receiving amongst the reviewers and the content creator community. They seem to be kind of split down the middle on this movie, so where do I stand? Well, let's go ahead and jump into that. I couldn't be more excited to talk about and discuss this movie after seeing it, so let's just go ahead and get into the review. Let's go. Superman is a brand new action sci-fi film written, produced, and directed by the new co-chairman and CEO of DC Studios, that being James Gunn. And this movie stands as our new launch-off point for the brand new DC universe, being formed and handled by James Gunn himself. And what other character is better to start off this new universe than Superman himself? When this film is played by David Corenswet, now James Gunn attempts to go with a completely fresh take with the Superman character. He wanted to get far away from the last version of this character, that being a more dark and brooding version with Henry Cavill Superman, and now we have Corenswet Superman. So leading into this, I've never been much of a Superman fan, to be quite honest with you. I've been a Batman guy my entire life, but I never minded Superman. He's sort of just been there for me. But for some reason, when it came to this film, when it came to James Gunn's Superman and a brand new DC universe, I began to get extremely excited for this movie, especially after seeing all the trailers and everything leading up to the release of this film theatrically. The hype, the anticipation started to build, you could feel it, and I began to get more excited about the character of Superman than I've ever been in my entire life. Now, I have a lot of positives to say about this film. I also have some negatives to say about this movie, so bear with me as we make our way through the Superman movie review. And let's go ahead and start with the plot synopsis. What do we get to see inside of this movie? When Superman gets drawn into conflicts at home and abroad, his actions are questioned, giving tech billionaire Lex Luthor the opportunity to get the Man of Steel out of the way for good. Will intrepid reporter Lois Lane and Superman's four-legged companion Krypto be able to help him before it's too late? Now, they decided not to do an origin story with this movie. Instead, we're dropped right in the middle of Superman's career. He's 3 years in at this point, so not exactly an amateur, but still finding his footing when it comes to this whole superhero thing. And there's definitely others surrounding him that are more experienced than him, such as characters like Mr. Terrific, Gardner, and other characters that we'll talk about later on in this review. Now, to start this review out, let's just go ahead and jump right into my positives for the brand new Superman film. And for my first positive with this film, I want to talk about the world, because like I said, they're going with a completely different take here. So we aren't getting that dark, moody, gray filtered type of movie that we were getting with the DCEU in the past. Instead, with this new DC universe, we're getting a bright, vibrant, and colorful Superman, a very sunny Metropolis, and what seems to be a proper approach to this classic character. I love the world design here for Metropolis. I love that there's the Daily Planet building, the way they designed it, and everything else that went into the city and the look and aesthetic of this film. Now, that all gives us the perfect backdrop for this new Superman. And how was the new Superman? Well, let's go ahead and jump right into that, because that is my next positive with this film, that being David Corenswet. How did he do as the new Superman? I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he gave a great performance. I thought he was believable. He was relatable, which I've never felt with the Superman character in the past. This one is definitely someone you could relate to. This film gets away from the typical talks of Superman, that being that he's this far away, distant, godlike being that is just out of reach and completely untouchable. No, this movie takes a completely different approach, where we get a Superman who is flawed, who makes mistakes, who doesn't always make the right decisions that turn out well for him, but he makes the best decision that he knows to make in that very moment, which is very admirable. In fact, we even see him get his ass whooped a lot throughout this film. He gets beat up constantly throughout this entire movie, because like I said, they really wanted to get it through to the audience that this guy is not untouchable. James Gunn definitely does everything in his power here to ground this hero in the best way that he knows how, and kind of bring him down to that human level and showcase the human element that's inside this alien Kryptonian character. And we come to find out that he's not that much different from you and me, which I definitely appreciated about this film, especially if we're going to talk about Clark Kent's parents, you know, his home life and his life on the farm, and you get to meet his parents inside this movie. I thought they were fantastic. They were very relatable, very understandable. At one point, you get a look at Clark Kent's childhood room that he grew up in. You see the trophies he's won throughout his life, you know, from playing sports, things like that. And, you know, it just really humanizes this character, which I think has been missing from Superman for quite some time now. So I'm glad that we got that back into this hero. I thought it was fantastic. You know, he's not perfect, as I stated, but he has so much heart, so much character that you can't help but like this guy. He wins you over instantly. You know, as soon as he appears on screen, there was no waiting period for me to be like, okay, this guy is Superman. No, immediately when I seen him on that big screen pop up, I went, that's Superman right there. And, you know, it's a version that I can get on board with personally. Now, let's move on to my next positive with this film, because there is so much I want to talk about when it comes to this movie. And for my next positive with this film, let's talk about Nicholas Hoult playing Lex Luthor, the villain inside of this movie. How does he do? You know, the classic Superman villain. How does Nicholas Hoult do as Lex Luthor? I thought he did a fantastic job. I thought he was a great villain. He really was. I thought it was a believable performance. You know, at first I was like, I don't know, because he's not that big of a guy. And when I imagine Lex Luthor in my head, I don't think Batman v Superman Lex Luthor, because that one was terrible, quite honestly. Me personally, I think about the Injustice Lex Luthor, where he's kind of big, bulky, kind of physically demanding, but of course his main power is his brain. In this one, Nicholas Holt's not that big of a guy, but man, is he an intimidating force inside of this movie. He is this thorn in Superman's side that refuses to go away from the very beginning, very intro of this movie to the very end of this film. Lex Luthor is there to torment Superman, to tear him apart from the most pettiest things imaginable, such as getting hate tweets and comments trending about Superman, all the way to the most dangerous, deadly, and terrifying versions of this character, and trying to just completely dismantle Superman as a whole, which I definitely appreciated inside of this movie. I thought he showcased Lex Luthor's brilliance while also showcasing his childlike nature, his envy, and all the things that we could despise about this character also. That was all on display here, which was great. A really strong performance from Nicholas Hoult, probably my favorite in his career to date, if I'm going to be quite honest. And let's move on to my other positives with this movie, and let's just go ahead and jump to Lois Lane's character. All right, so Lois Lane, of course, the love interest, the classic love interest for Clark Kent, for Superman, for Kal-El. How does Lois Lane do in this film, our brand new Lois Lane? I thought she was a good addition to this film. I think they definitely have chemistry on camera with each other. These two actors, they're doing a great job in every scene with each other, and I love that they showcase the, again, imperfection of their relationship, because when we jump into this movie, they've only been dating really for about 3 months, I want to say. You know, they're brand new. They're in the very beginning of their relationship, and it's a bit rocky because Superman is this hero and he expects a supportive girlfriend in Lois Lane, and she 100% is that, except for when she needs to be her business side, her reporter side, which we know she definitely has in her. So when she swaps over to this reporter role and gets into that lane, that is where the divisiveness between Superman and Lois Lane begin, as we've seen a bit inside of the trailers that released for this film. And we get a great scene where they're just debating back and forth with each other, and Superman's like, where is all this coming from? We've talked about all this stuff personally. And she's like, we've talked about all this stuff privately. In public light, I'm not supposed to know any of this knowledge, and this is what a good reporter would be asking you, which she happens to be. So I love that James Gunn showcased the imperfection of their relationship, and it felt real. It felt grounded, and you get to see them evolve as a couple as this film goes on, especially once you get to more so the end of this film. Now, let's move on to another positive I have with this movie. Let's start touching on the Justice Gang, as they're called inside of this movie, starting with Mr. Terrific. Now, you may have seen I have a comic book right here. It is a Mr. Terrific comic book. Okay, it's year 1, issue 1, so a brand new start to the Mr. Terrific character. I just read this about a week before this movie released, so it was a great, you know, way to open myself up before seeing this character on the big screen, so I can get a little bit of understanding about him. And I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed this comic book one. I thought this was a great first issue of Mr. Terrific to introduce you to the character, and I thought inside of this movie that he was easily the best part of this film. If we're going to be completely honest, Mr. Terrific stole this movie, and I think a lot of people are going to have that same opinion when they walk out of this film, because they give him so much screen time, so much development. You don't really get too much on like his backstory, his back life, which you do inside this comic book, but inside the movie you don't. You just get to see him as this hero and this ally to Superman inside of this movie. And I love the way this character comes across, from the costume design all the way to, you know, the way he acts on screen, the way he portrays this character's personality, very stoic like, but a slight, very small sense of humor to him. You know, he's not completely unreachable inside of this movie, and the way that they showcase his powers, really, he doesn't have any powers, right? It's all his mind. His brain is his power, very similar to Lex Luthor, and you definitely see that showcased here. The way he uses technology to become a formidable force on the battlefield was amazing. The way that they showcased Mr. Terrific's power, I loved it. From what I read in this comic book, it was very accurate on screen, so that was amazing to see. And he had one action scene inside of this movie that I thought was the best action scene in the entire film. He's amazing. Mr. Terrific is the GOAT, okay? He's a G. After watching this movie, Mr. Terrific is my biggest takeaway, I gotta say. But let's talk about the other members of the Justice Gang, okay? Let's talk about Guy Gardner. He's been getting a lot of attention, a lot of hype going into this movie. The Green Lantern, right? He is a Green Lantern. I thought this was an interesting character to start off the mythos of the Green Lanterns inside the new DCU. He looks a bit more on the older side, but I gotta say he's hilarious inside of this movie. A great comedic relief. He also has an awesome power that he showcases with, of course, his Green Lantern ring, and the way that he utilizes it in battle was very interesting to see. I love the way they displayed that. He has a lot of good one-liners in this movie, and yeah, I thought it was a great addition to the movie. Now let's move on to another character that I thoroughly enjoyed inside of this film, and that would be Jimmy Olsen, which, as you guys can hear, this movie is chock full of characters. They throw a ton at you. They just drop you right in the middle, and I loved it. So Jimmy Olsen, of course, in Man of Steel, people were extremely irritated that he just gets killed off right away. You never get to explore this very popular character inside the Superman comics. So how is Jimmy Olsen inside of this film? Fantastic. I love the way that they displayed Jimmy Olsen. I love the way he came across inside this film, this reporter that's working at the Daily Planet with Clark Kent, with Lois Lane. I think he's a great addition to this film. He was also another great comedic relief. He has some very hilarious moments inside of this movie, really got the audience laughing, which I definitely appreciated. I'd love to see more out of Jimmy Olsen in the future. I love the way that they have such a deep cast of so many characters, and for the most part, they're all intriguing, they're all interesting, they all have their own unique thing to them, even like just a random, seemingly random reporter working at Daily Planet, right? Of course, he becomes more important in the future of the Superman story, but from what we're seeing in this film, that's kind of what he comes across. And yeah, Jimmy Olsen was great. All right, now I do want to jump back a bit to talk about more of the world, because there is something I forgot to touch on, that being the Fortress of Solitude. You get to see it. Of course, it was inside the trailer. You damn near get the entire opening of the movie, okay? They released it on YouTube, and you got to see that before going into this film. At least I did. We covered it on the channel. We reacted to that. You can go check that video out. But yeah, the Fortress of Solitude was fantastic. The way they showcased it, displayed it to the audience, made you understand how Superman's fortress works, this fleet of robots that he has there kind of working for him, the way he's able to get sunlight, direct sunlight there to recharge and repower there. It was fantastic. I love the way they did the Fortress of Solitude, especially the way it kind of collapses into the ground and comes back up. That was all amazing. And for my final positive that we're going to discuss with this movie, at least for the non-spoiler section, I want to talk a little bit more about the world of this Superman film, that being one that's very divided, very political. The world is divided on Superman when we get to this film, okay? He's finally experiencing his first losses in his entire superhero career, we could say, in this entire 3 years. Superman is finally beginning to not win fights. He's beginning to fail, and we get to see how this world reacts to it. We get to see how they react to Lex Luthor putting out bad news, bad information about Superman, and how they're divided on him. We get to see the reaction to Superman invading a war that's going on in 2 foreign countries and putting himself right in the middle of it, putting a stop to that war. And we get to see the way, again, the world reacts to that, okay? Yes, he did a really good thing going to stop this war on a human level, but There's governments and there's laws you have to follow here on Earth, and Superman breaks all of them when he goes to do these things. So what is the moral implications of that? Should he be able to do these things? Should the government have power over Superman and get to tell him, no, you cannot do that? There's also the whole political element here. Again, this is where a lot of the divisiveness for this film comes from, by the way, is the fact that there is real life parallels inside of this movie with the politics and the commentary going on inside of this movie too, you know, the more modern politics that's happening currently in real life. And while I'm not going to jump too much into the real life stuff because I don't want to divide the audience, all right, I want to just talk about and discuss this movie, I will say I love the way that they showcase the political element of Superman's world. All right, I think they did a great job with that. It felt like a typical story that would be told inside this movie, so I don't get why people are so uptight about it. And yeah, it provided a platform for a conversation and a discussion to be had around Superman as a whole, as a being, and how much power should he really have, and how much trust we should be putting in someone like this as a nation, as a country, right? That was all fantastic. Now, like I said, we had so many positives to say. For the most part, we got through a majority of them. I have some for the spoiler section, but before we get to that, let's go ahead and jump into my negatives for the Superman film. Now, quite honestly, compared to all the positives we just went over, I don't have too many negatives with this movie, but that's not to say this movie was perfect. It definitely was not a perfect movie. So let's jump into the negatives. What did I not like about this movie? Well, let's start with Hawk Girl. Okay, this is easily the least fleshed out member of the Justice Gang, of, you know, the team of Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawk Girl. Very mid character. They do nothing with her. Even the little, you know, one-liners that she does get in the movie, they aren't done very well. They aren't done justice. I don't think she was written very well, quite honestly. There's still a lot more to be done here, and if you just delete her from this film overall, then nothing changes about this movie. If anything, it just gets slightly better, to be honest with you. Now, moving on to another negative with this film, and this one's going to be a slight nitpick, okay? Luthor Corp. Why is it called this? I thought it's always been called Lex Corp, at least for my entire life, as much as I've been exposed to DC, which is a whole ton, okay? I love DC, so that slight change there, it felt unnecessary, unneeded. Like, we didn't change the Daily Planet's name, we didn't change Metropolis' name or any of these other characters' name or anything like that. Why that small, minute change from James Gunn? I have no idea, okay? Let's just go back to Lex Corp. This Luthor Corp looks goofy. Like I said, it's a slight nitpick. Now let's get into more real criticism with this film. And you may have noticed I haven't touched on Krypto the dog, right? Well, how was Krypto inside of this movie? Well, of course, I love dogs, okay? First things first, I am an animal person. I do love dogs. But what I don't like is disobedient dogs, all right? And Krypto is a disobedient dog, which got old very fast while watching this movie. You know, at first it was cute. You know, he's a cute animal, cute dog. He gets some cool, you know, admirable scenes with Superman inside of this film. But very quickly into this movie, I started to get very irritated with the character of Krypto. How much he disobeys, how much he doesn't listen, how much he just screws things up for Superman. I mean, this guy is beat to hell at the beginning of this movie, as we've seen in the trailers leading up to this movie's release. And what does Krypto do? Again, you got to see it in the trailer. He just barges into them, rushes him, hurts him over and over again. Like, what? What kind of super dog is this? All right. He's supposed to be a genuine help to Superman, at least from my understanding of Krypto the dog. And he definitely was not that inside of this movie. He's a slight comedic relief at times, very, very slight, but for the most part, he's just irritating, he's annoying, he's unnecessary, and if we were going to include Krypto into the movie, I would appreciate it if he wasn't that for the entire film. You know, if it was that for 1 to 2 scenes, but that behavior gets corrected, then okay, it makes sense, but damn, the entire movie, this dog is just ruining things and just doing dumb things. That was annoying. We didn't need that inside of this movie. I will say that the movie includes a slight, you know, explanation for why Krypto is the way he is, but I don't think it was a very good one, quite honestly. And yeah, that's how I feel about Krypto inside of this movie. Could have done better. I hope if we're going to include him in future films, Krypto the dog is a lot better. All right, now let's move on to another negative that I had with the Superman film, and that would be Lex Luthor's minions inside of this movie. Okay, he has 2 kind of guys working under him. He has the engineer, which not guys, right? She's a woman. He has the engineer, and then he has Ultraman inside of this movie. How do those characters do? I thought they were kind of mid, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought their inclusion was a bit unnecessary. Now, that's not to say that the engineer's powers weren't cool, because they were cool. In fact, there's one particular scene that she has with Superman that was very good. Very solid. I loved what they did with her powers, the way they showcased them. But when it comes to her character as a whole, when it comes to her, as a person, very surface level, very unnecessary, outside of the fact that she moves the plot along for Lex Luthor's character at times. And Ultraman, no. Just no, okay? I was not feeling this character. He felt so unnecessary, so out of place, so like this could have came a couple films from now. Why are we getting this inside the first movie? It felt a little lazy, to be honest with you, with the whole thing that they do with this character. Again, I don't want to tell you what it is, but if you read the comics and if it's accurate to the movie, I'm not sure if it is, then you probably already know what's going on with this character. But yeah, Ultraman, he was not that good inside of this movie. Both the Lex Luthor henchmen, they weren't that great, all right? We could have done without them inside this film, or at least just included them a little less. I think that would have worked just fine. Now, as for my negatives in the non-spoiler section of this video, that pretty much wraps them up. We'll touch about more in the spoiler section, but as for now, let's go ahead and get into my overall review for the Superman film. Look, guys, this movie was a breath of fresh air, at least for me, all right? I really appreciated this new take on Superman. I really appreciated feeling like, okay, this is a Superman I can get on board with. This is one I can relate to. This is one I can understand. He feels more grounded, all right? And I appreciated that inside this movie. I loved David Corenswet's take on this character. I just fully buy him as Superman the moment I seen him, and especially with the performance throughout this film. This is Superman, okay? He does an amazing job inside this movie. I really didn't have many critiques with his performance whatsoever, though he does have a corny cringe line when he's yelling at Lex Luthor. But outside of that slight nitpick, I don't really have problems with this character. I love Metropolis. I love the way it's displayed. I love the way it looks. I love the Daily Planet. I love the Justice Gang outside of Hawk Girl is awesome. Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific. Fantastic characters. Mr. Terrific steals the show, as I stated before. Can't wait till we get, a full movie for Mr. Terrific. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that in the future. Lois Lane is good inside this movie, all right? She's a good addition. I love her relationship with Superman. I love that it's not a perfect relationship, that they're going through a rocky point at times, but that they make it through in the end. It shows, a human level, a human element, which Superman as a whole is showcased to have inside this film. As a whole, this movie is about what it is to be human. That's really what the point of this movie is. What does it mean to be human? Yes, you make mistakes. Yes, humans are imperfect, but at the end of the day, we're all doing the best we can, and the important thing is that you get up and you keep trying and that you don't quit. That's what I got from this movie, all right? Superman gets his ass whooped throughout this entire movie, gets beat down badly for the very first time in his entire superhero career. He's damn near losing throughout this entire film, guys. He is, but he gets back up. He keeps going. He doesn't quit. And I loved that heart from this character. I loved seeing his relationship with his parents and just how real his life really is. He didn't feel like an alien, even though he is. He is a Kryptonian. He is an alien. He didn't feel like that. He felt like he was raised here on Earth. His character, honestly, was very similar to Goku. All right. And I'll touch more on that comparison in the spoiler section. Now, I can see why this movie is divisive, because people don't always like camp, guys. This movie is campy. It's goofy. It's silly. It's a little corny at times, but I thought it was perfect. I thought it was the perfect way to showcase Superman. I thought it was the perfect way to showcase his world. And, this feels like a comic book page ripped off and just showcase, put on the screen a lot of the shots and scenes inside of this movie, especially when you see Superman with the Justice Gang or with Luthor, and just so many other things that they do with this film that I didn't expect the film to go there. It even goes a little intergalactic, includes a lot of aliens in this movie. I didn't expect that at all. It felt like comic book, straight off the page, straight onto the movie screen, and I loved every second of it. For the most part, outside of my negatives with this film right now. Jimmy Olsen was fantastic. Krypto could have been a lot better. Engineer and Ultraman could have been a lot better. But as a whole, I thought this was a fantastic start to the new DC universe. I love that this movie feels like it's straight out of like the 90s, early 2000s type of superhero movies. That's kind of the vibe that you get with this movie, especially with how campy it is. And like I said, I loved it, guys. I loved the way that they showcased this character. And as Joker says, you know, I love the way that they took this White Knight, DC's White Knight, and they brought him down to our level, right? It was perfect. It really was. So let's go ahead and drop my official rating for the Superman film. If I had to rate this movie, guys, I would go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10. It gets the 8 out of 10. I thought about it a little, you know, after seeing this movie, after writing down a lot of my notes for this review. What am I going to rate it? I did have it a bit higher at first, but after going over all the negatives, I think an 8 out of 10 is a perfect score for this movie. It does so much right. So much right, and I could definitely see them improving with a second Superman film, a third Superman film, you know, completing that trilogy. This world has room to grow, which I like that. It took risks. It went far. James Gunn really did a lot with this movie. It didn't feel too Guardians of the Galaxy. To me personally, to some people it probably will. Outside of one scene, which really reminded me of the Guardians inside this movie, it didn't really feel like that other than that one scene. So like I said, this feels fresh and I love it. This is the most excited, the most hyped, the most love I've ever had in my entire life for the Superman character. I will say though that I'm seeing a lot of like diehard Superman fans, such as like a Tyrone Magnus, an Angry Joe Show, right? These guys in the space that are just known for how much they love Superman. They aren't really liking this movie. They aren't really vibing with this movie. They aren't scoring it that highly, which was really a surprise to me. I'm also seeing some other reviewers, some other content creators do the same thing, kind of give it the same ratings. So I am a bit surprised with that. But with all that being said, guys, it's finally time for us to jump into the spoiler section for the Superman movie. And for the very first thing that I want to touch on for the Superman film, let's go ahead and talk about Supergirl. Okay, Superman's cousin, the original owner of Krypto, right? Superman in this movie is just watching over Krypto for his cousin Supergirl as she's off, I guess, partying on other planets, doing things like that. Guys, I didn't like Supergirl inside this movie. We only get her for about a minute, maybe even less than that, maybe 30 seconds. You get a small little scene at the end of this film with her, but I really hated the way that they portrayed and displayed and showcased this character. I thought it was distasteful. I thought it was very different from the takes on this character I've seen in the past, you know, in video games and comics and whatever, and I really didn't like it, not at all. All right, they gave her like this Valley Girl nature to her, characteristics to her. I hated it. The way she talks, the actions that she's doing. Apparently, you know, according to this movie, she's just going off to other planets, other galaxies that don't have a yellow sun to get drunk so that she can party. And that's what the movie says, you know? And then she makes like some one-liner where she tells Superman like, "Oh, I'll see you, bitch," or something like that. It was just corny. I hated it. It wasn't good. I think they should have done something different with this character. I like a more traditional take for my Supergirl, me personally, but if that's what they're going with, like this teenage, like college girl type of thing, whatever, it's not for me. And yeah, let's move on to my other, you know, spoilers that I want to discuss for this film. Let's start with the first post-credit scene. Now, it's not really much of one. It's just kind of a little small. What? It's like 10 seconds, maybe less than that. And it is Superman and Krypto. I thought it was great, honestly. It's Superman and Krypto. They're like sitting on the moon looking at Earth. And it was just a great shot. I loved it. It looked iconic. There was a lot of iconic shots inside this movie, by the way, that felt amazing to see. But yeah, there wasn't too much to discuss there, so let's move on to the second credit scene, you know, the final credit scene inside this movie, and it was between Superman, Mr. Terrific. They're standing there after the events of this movie, and they're just sitting there looking at the wall, and they're like, "You know, you didn't line it up that correctly." Superman says, like, "There's something a little off with how you lined up the world," which we'll touch about what was going on there. You know, there's like a black hole going on and they had to repair the world. Mr. Terrific manages to put it back together, but it's like a slight bit off, all right? And they make a joke about it. Superman critiques him, and then Mr. Terrific gets upset that he's being critiqued by Superman, and he just walks off a little irritated. I thought it was a good comedic relief. Thought it was great comedy. A little cool post-credit scene for the fans. Wasn't anything too much to hint as to what we're going to get next, but it was funny nonetheless. Now, that is most of the spoilers out of the way that I wanted to discuss, so let's just jump around, try to find something else inside this movie that we want to pick out and talk about. Like, for instance, the engineer's powers. I do want to discuss it because while I thought the character was okay, it was kind of mid, the powers were very cool. That scene on the football field where she's putting, like, I don't know, her nanobites or nanotechnology kind of climbs its way onto Superman's face, almost very Venom-like. It was very reminiscent of like Marvel's Venom, the way it just encases him in like what looks like this black goo almost, and I thought it was a very cool scene. It was like pouring into his lungs and he just takes off, flies into the sun, flies up to the point where they're gonna pass out in Earth, and then they just free fall down, hit the ground. That was crazy. That was a fantastic scene. But then the scene that comes right after it was not that good. Ultraman versus Superman. We get the reveal. That is something that I want to discuss. Okay, we get the reveal of Ultraman being a Superman clone that Lex Luthor created, and he doesn't have any brains, but Lex Luthor can control him, so he's just as strong as Superman. We might as well use him as a weapon. It wasn't that good. It was terrible, honestly. It felt unnecessary. It felt out of place. It felt weird to throw into the very first Superman movie. We're already doing a Superman clone. We just got his movie for the very first time. Why are we already doing the Superman clone? I don't know. I really didn't like it, quite honestly. But now that we've discussed Ultraman, let's talk about the Goku comparison that I made earlier in the video. I'm not sure, was it in the negative section? I think it might have been. But yeah, so Goku's origin story, right? Sent by the Saiyans to crash land on planet Earth, take over, sent with a mission to take over, and that is kind of the twist that we get here inside of this movie. Is Superman's parents sent him to Earth. They tell him, you know, do all these good things, be Superman, be great for mankind, and then there's a part of the message that Lex Luthor ends up discovering and putting out to the world, and that's that Superman's parents also included in this message that they want him to rule over Earth. They even do like a harem joke, which was hilarious, honestly. For those who got it in the audience, we were dying laughing, and then the other half of the audience is like, what are y'all dying laughing about? They didn't really know what that was. If you're into anime, you know exactly what a harem is. So Lex Luthor putting out false information that Superman's supposed to have this harem and that even his parents told him to have it, take many wives. Hilarious as hell. But again, it felt very Goku-esque, you know, crash landed alien that looks human, that, you know, he comes from a planet where they look human, they're very similar to humans, crash lands on Earth without any memory from this foreign place, and yeah, raised up by, you know, humans that adopt this alien and raise it as one of their own into this good, bright, you know, kind-hearted individual, hero type character. And they end up finding out that the people who sent them to do bad things, and they end up resisting and saying, no, you know, I'm still going to be who I was raised to be here on Earth. It's a one-to-one parallel. I mean, it's the exact same story, Superman and Goku. I don't hate it, but it's just something that really stuck out to me inside of this movie, so I thought I'd go ahead and mention it in the spoiler section. Now, we could also discuss the whole prison scene with, you know, the pocket hole universe. I thought that was really cool, the pocket hole universe, but man, it got weird there. It got super comic booky there, which I thought was good. It got very like intergalactic there, which was interesting, and yeah, I thought that was strange. It came across very strange, but it kind of worked. I kind of liked it. And really, that's all the spoilers that I want to discuss for this film, guys. So with that being said, you know, that was the movie review for Superman. That was the non-spoiler section, positives, negatives, overall rating and review, and then that was the spoiler section. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Quite a long video. It's going to take me a while to edit, but I'm going to get it up as soon as I can for you guys. And like I said, I couldn't be more excited to talk about this movie, so I'm glad we finally got to discuss it on the channel. We've been building and leading up to it for quite some time now with the trailer reaction, so it's nice to complete this mission. I told you guys, you know, we're gonna be there day one to watch this in theaters and do a review, and here we are following through with that promise, so that felt good to keep that promise to you guys. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the movie review. I'd love to know your thoughts on the new Superman film down in the comment section down below. Like I said, it's very divisive right now. Some people aren't really feeling the new take on Superman. Some people are loving it. All right, they're singing its praises. Other people are divided. They're saying it's all right, it was mid, and then others are just saying it's trash. Of course, there's always going to be that group of people. This definitely was far from trash, if we're going to be completely honest. But with that being said, if you don't know what we do here on Demigod ENT, we do film and TV reactions and reviews and other movie-based content. So if you're interested in any of this movie-based content, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.